Hi, I'm IKEA, and for today's video I want to do a build showcase on the Fire Eclipse. And the Fire Eclipse is a build, of course, that I've already done a master class on, and that's already available on the channel. And we call it a Fire Eclipse to differentiate it from a Foam Eclipse, which is the other great setup that Eclipse Protocol gear set can be set up as. And Fire Eclipse is very much my go-to for heroics, especially in groups where I try to use it to carry groups through content, as it can make quite the difference instead of just having even more damage, to have a build like this alongside of several damage dealers to CC stuff, do its own damage, and make content quite a lot easier. As always with my build showcases, I'll be making extensive use of my build collection and several build pictures from there, and everything of course will be linked below together with the masterclass. And as with all build showcases as well, I will be splitting it up into two chapters. In the first chapter, we'll go over the build layout. And for this build, calculations didn't really make sense. So instead, I'll be taking it into some tactics for it in the second part of the first chapter, where I'll be explaining some of the mechanics that you can use and may be important to know, as some people don't. And in the second part, in the second chapter, we'll go into some gameplay where I'll take two variants, a normal variant, or what I consider the normal variant, and a glass variant into some gameplay, as those are the two builds that we'll discuss today. Before we jump into the build layout, I want to make a little bit of an advertisement for myself, as I just wanted to raise awareness that I will be streaming for the coming time over on Twitch, starting each evening at around 9 p.m. Central European Summertime, as I have done as well for the last few weeks, where I just hang out, play around, do the things I would basically already be doing while playing the game. Hanging out with chat, answering some questions here and there. Usually sometimes as well playing with builds that are upcoming or that I'm testing out for the build collection. And even from time to time, with as with this showcase, it was actually recorded live during a session, as that can give a nice sneak preview for people there, and give a look behind the scenes as how I make these. So if you enjoy, if any of that sounds enjoyable, I would love for you guys to come hang out with me there, as it is linked down below, of course, as well. It's the IKEA 87 channel. And let's continue on with the build. And here is the layout. This is what I would consider the normal Eclipse, and usually what I call this is the Eclipsiest Eclipse that ever has eclipsed, which is a setup where we take the chest and the backpack of the Eclipse together with a vial and one piece of electric. In this setup, we'll go with the chest and the backpack for their talents. As first to start off talking about Eclipse itself, on the 2-piece we get some status effect, on the 3-piece we get some skill haste and hazard protection. They're useful stats, but not the most important part of this. And in the 4-piece, as we are set up here to use the entire gear set, we get this indirect transmission, which is that your status effects now spread on kill to all enemies within 10 meters and refresh 50% of the duration. And what this means is whenever you apply any status effect, so that can come from skills, but even if you do it with a weapon, for instance, or just you blow up a barrel in the open world where the fire will spread from, if something catches on fire from it, even that will spread. And this on kill is from any source. It can be you, it can be your status effect, it can be your ally. So in whatever way that they die, they will spread it. It is within 10 meters, so that is a 20-meter circle around the enemy and 50% of the duration. And then we're taking the chest to increase that 10 meters to 15 meters, so it's a 30-meter circle around the enemy, and the 70% of the duration goes along with it. And that makes it quite strong. This is quite a big circle, so everything that, for instance, here especially, we're using fire as our main source of damage. Anything that's on fire, when they die, they spread in a pretty big circle, and each time they lose a little bit of the duration, but it carries along a decent duration. So that's what we're using the chest for. The backpack talent provides us with amplifies all damages you deal to status affected targets by 30%. So this is in the same style as Glass or Opportunistic, where it is, in this case, it is conditional to status affected enemies, but if you're doing it right, everything is status affected. And this is only your damage, to be clear. This is not damage of allies or anything, but it is 30%, which is quite a lot. And this does apply, for instance, to your fire, to your bleed, to any status effects you apply, to your weapon as well. So this is quite strong, and that's why we usually do go with the chest and the backpack. Then we take the Vial Mask, and the Vial Mask is very much a strong piece to add in here because it, what it does with this toxic delivery is your status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds, and that's 50% of your concussion grenade damage. So that is the damage of this grenade, the concussion grenade, the base grenade. And that is quite a decent amount, and it also scales off of your status effect attributes as well. And we take this because it adds in a little bit more damage to everything that we status effect. Our main goal is to status effect as many things anyway. It's going to spread even, and even when it spreads, it also engages this. So it is actually quite a strong extra piece of damage, but it isn't your main damage. This is just on top. This is the cherry on top. And that's also why, just to discuss that here, increasing that concussion grenade damage that some people claim is a good choice by either going China Light or going with Demolitionist as the specialization isn't actually worth it, mostly because it also increases by your status effect attribute. And also when you're doing that, you're decreasing the damage of your main source of fire usually. And that doesn't make sense, really. It is actually, you lose damage. It may seem like a decent idea, but in effect, it just doesn't work out. And to then go to the remaining piece that we have, we used to always have Golan as the recommended piece, but Golan, of course, has been completely superseded by Electrique, as Electrique comes with a yellow core. And that makes it so much easier to farm than the Golan that came with a blue core. So with Golan, you had to find a piece that had both of the stats on it already, and then recalibrate the core to become yellow. So you could use it together with all of the specializations and not just Technician. And that made it quite a hard piece to get. With Electrique, that has become so much easier, and that has made Eclipses in general much easier to farm, and has even made the second build that we're going to discuss in this showcase quite a lot easier to get, which is a Glass variant. With Electrique, in this case, I have recored the scores because sometimes I want to take a blue core. If I do go Technician with it for fighting Black Desk missions. But in general, I would just recommend finding a piece, putting status effect and skill haste. The other option here is to go skill damage, as to explain what the stats, the three main stats that you'll go after are status effect, which applies to all of your status effect skills, which is of course your main thing that you're trying to do. Skill damage will apply to all of the damaging skills and will increase, for instance, with the fire chem, will increase the burn damage as well. But status effect, instead of skill damage, will increase it by the same amount of burn damage, but also add into burn duration with status effect, and skill damage only adds into that burn duration. So it is a secondary choice you could make alongside of status effect, but it shouldn't be the main thing that you go for. Status effect is the main stat you'll go for, and then you pair it with either skill haste or skill damage. In my case, I much prefer skill haste usually, because one of the main things that I feel Eclipses lack is actually skill haste. Running really fast through some of the shorter missions that are really packed, for instance, Lincoln, you will usually start running out of charges towards the end, especially on a less knowledgeable Eclipse that doesn't know where everything is spawning and is playing reactively. You'll use a lot more charges. And that does make the skill haste my preferred choice. And to move on to the skills, the main skill to me for Fire Eclipse is the Fire Chem Launcher, Fire Starter Chem Launcher, as it is very much a tool that I much prefer over the Fire Sticky, which is one of the other choices that a lot of people do go for, the Burn Sticky Bomb. I much prefer the fire cam, and that is mostly down to it having ammo. The fire sticky will have basically is available every 16-ish seconds to start a fire with. But with the fire cam, I have 8 charges, and that means that I can set multiple waves on fire in short duration, which you will likely see me do quite often in the gameplays coming up. And that to me makes the fire cam my tool of preference. I will be also using it, and in the tactics session, we'll go over some of the things that some people miss quite often about it. So especially check that part at the very least. And then I pair it usually with, for me, the Stinger Hive. As also you may notice, as both skills are expertise to 20, so they have been, they are that popular with me that I have chosen to spend a lot of expertise grades on them and exotic components on them. And the Stinger Hive is very much a tool that I use to delete a wave, basically, once in a while, or to area deny. And it isn't the greatest damage dealer, but it is one of the good damage dealing choices alongside of the fire cam. And I very much am a fan of it. But at points, I might take a Firefly, the Blinder Firefly to blind with, Jammer Pulse to jam with, the Shock Trap to shock with, and not much else, actually. Sometimes people, or EMP Sticky, actually, as well, to long-range shock with, or long-range disrupt with. Some people choose to double fire, basically taking a burn sticky and the fire cam. I wouldn't recommend that. One source of fire is plenty enough. I very much like to have basically 2 tools, and especially having fire and bleed alongside of each other. Even if the bleed is weak, it adds on top, basically acting as even more of a Val. And yeah, that is very much my choices for it. What I would recommend especially is to have the burn strength mod inside of the fire cam, because that applies to both stats, and on the other mods don't really matter. On the mod slot for ammo, you couldn't go ammo or skill haste. In the Stinger, you basically have, well, this is really the only option of going damage and Stinger charges, and then this third one of either duration or health. Neither really matters, so just pick whatever there. Especially having 4 more Stinger charges is a really handy thing. If we move on to the weapons, you will see that I'm using 2 shotguns, and especially the shotgun is important here as it has this damage to armor, which will apply to our fire. Damage to targets out of cover will not. Damage to health will not. So damage to armor is a stat that, yeah, will increase our fire damage by even more, which is quite handy. And I'm using an in-sync shotgun, and that is for one trick that I very much use it for, which is to extend the length of my fire, and I will likely discuss that in the gameplay. The other one, and that is really the choice that you have with Eclipse, is what exotic do you take? In my case, I'll be taking Scorpio, basically exclusively, as I very much like the Scorpio, as it applies status effects of its own, and especially that one-shot poison. It can be a really handy tool to stagger red and purple enemies and then set them on fire quite easily. The other option that you have, and that's basically the thing that dictates what you go with, is the capacitor. And the capacitor, of course, also has that damage to armor, which is, it being an AR, it should have damage to health there, but it has damage to armor. And specifically because then, yeah, it can be used a lot more effectively on skill builds. And it increases skill damage by quite a lot and gives you a lot of weapon damage. And that makes it a usable choice because, yeah, skill damage does increase your fire damage as well, where the Scorpio really is only there to debuff enemies and can, of course, give that group debuff on 7 shots. But to get to 7 shots, that basically means it's mostly saved for named enemies. But you basically choose one of the 2 exotics. For me, I go with the Scorpio, and that in gameplay may become apparent why I do. But if you're trying to min-max your damage, the capacitor is not the wrong choice. And then you basically pair that with a weapon that fits with it a little bit. So in my case, I'm going with the Scorpio, so I then want a tool to increase my fire damage, to overwrite my fires intermittently when I can. And what I also take is usually a future perfect weapon. And that is one of the other talents that you could even take on the main weapon. Together with as well perpetuation is one of the options. And where you basically put those doesn't really matter. I could have this be the in sync weapon and then have future perfect there. I like having future perfect on the pistol because sometimes I can sneak in a shot and just get a last shot on an enemy, MOBA style. And with it, because we are 6 skill tier, we will gain overcharge. And overcharge, especially on the Hive, will give it a very large, because if you actually go into the skills and scroll all the way to the bottom here, it will state what they gain when they overcharge. And in this case, the Hive is unique in that it gets a ton of skill haste, and of course damage and stuff as well, but it gains a ton of skill haste, so I can use that to recharge it very quickly. The Fire Cam gains a lot of radius, and then also its damage will increase by quite a lot. So yeah, when you can sneak one in, it is quite handy for that. And that's usually the weapon layout and how it matters. One thing you can do as well nowadays is with St. Elmo, you can load it up till you have the shock rounds and then intermittently tap stuff with shock, which can be useful for some of the global events, for instance. If we then move on to the specialization, my specialization of choice, as especially I use Eclipses in groups, is Survivalist. As Survivalist provides a group buff to status affected enemies that your allies get, that they deal 10% more damage to them, which is very strong. And also it has flame grenades, and also it has the crossbow, which I quite often will use, and I'll discuss that in the gameplay. The other real option is to go with the firewall and the flamethrower, as in there you do gain fire duration as one of the talents, and especially solo, if you are going to use Eclipse solo, which isn't my thing. I have other builds that I prefer more solo, but it is a very strong choice for solo, so you can use it that way. But yeah, it provides with more burn duration, but it is more personal damage basically, and less group damage, and is an active choice that you can go for because yeah, the flamethrower is quite useful as well. The other option as well is to go Gunner, and Gunner is very much only you go that way for the Banshee Pulse, which is a really great tool, which I won't be discussing here, but if you are interested in that build, it is featured in the Master Class, where it's one of the builds that I show off, and it is very strong. And it also gets a foam grenade, giving you a source for foaming enemies. You could even go TAC 50 for the blind, but a blind Firefly will do that and better. Technician can provide you with EMP grenades, and sometimes I do use that for going up against Black Tusk, where I will basically recore that core on the electric that I have to blue, just so I don't waste skill tier, and then go in with having those EMPs come, or using those EMP grenades to EMP around while keeping my fire and my hive. And yeah, Demolitionist, as I said, is actually a choice that a lot of places shows up on Eclipse, and I would not recommend it. It does increase the vial ticks. It has that bleed grenade, but it's a very weak bleed. So it's actually, yeah, not a good fit, I feel, for Eclipses. But yeah, so what I would recommend is especially Survivalist, Gunner, and a Technician for groups, and each of them for their specific thing. The Banshee Pulse is really nice. The EMP grenade is really nice. And if you do want to use Eclipse solo, then Firewall makes the most sense, as it provides you with the most benefits for it. And now, having discussed all parts of this build, let us jump on over to the range, where I'll discuss some of the tactics. And to discuss some of those tactics, I've come here to the range, of course, where we can do it in isolation and without being fired upon. So the first thing I want to show you, if you did not know, as quite often people do not, is what you can do, of course, with the fire cam is lay it down, and then take out your weapon and then shoot at it, or have someone else shoot at it. And if that is the way that you do it, maybe I am about to blow your mind, where if you put it down, and then just double tap the buttons on, it ignites. And that is a very important thing for the Eclipse to do, because it's always better basically to double tap ignite, and get the fire going that way over trying to shoot it. There's really no reason to ever shoot it, and it is basically my way of seeing who knows when there's another Eclipse in the group and I'm not eclipsing. If they know their stuff or not is if they place it down and then shoot it. I basically know that they likely are not that familiar with the tools of the trade for an Eclipse. And one of the things that you need to note is that there is a little bit of a timing on it. So here I'm going to basically fire and just keep jamming on the key it's on, and it doesn't ignite basically right away. It has to land on the ground, disperse its gas, and then it will ignite. There's a little bit of a timing to it, depending on your latency as well to the server. It can be longer or shorter, especially I noticed that when playing with American players on US East or US Mid, where I'm in Europe, and a little bit more latency makes that take a little bit longer. The next thing I want to show is one of the handy things, and it is quite hard to see. In-game, it is a lot easier to see, is if you put your chem upon enemies, it goes red. Upon yourself as well, it goes red. And what you see in there, in that red area, if you kind of can see in there, is that there is lines leading from the center point to all of those enemies. And you can see those even through walls. So even if I put my chem there, and then if, let's say, this was a wall being in the way, I could hide behind here, see when stuff enters the chem by seeing those lines, and then ignite, and then kill everything. That's quite a handy tactic, especially for if you're ranging towards enemies and you're not sure if they're there. If it goes red, there is something inside of it at least. And if you leave it on the ground and then you see those lines pop up, basically, you then know that it's ready to be ignited. The next trick is one that's in gameplay, especially over time, you will find a lot of places where it's easier to bounce from a wall to get it onto enemies, or bounce from a ceiling, especially when they're above you. It is actually really hard to sometimes land shots if they are on top of a stairs, for instance, at the start of Lincoln. But what you can do is bounce it off a pillar next to them and land it on top of them. And the fire chem can bounce, the foam of course can't. And you can also do that actually with the grenade launcher as well. And it's a really handy trick to know, because quite often you can bounce it off the wall behind them or above them to land it on top of them. So instead of, if they were basically obscured in a little bit of a way, and this ceiling is very much annoying because yeah, it's not that well laid out, so it tries to catch on it. But yeah, if there's a balcony, if they're above you, if there's a sniper in a window, you can bounce it off the, if they have a roof above them, you can bounce it off that, land it on top of them, and kill them that way. Next up, I want to discuss why I very much like to have the Scorpio, especially. And that's not even to so much apply, while its status effects are actually handy, its disorient and its shock are really strong, its debuff at 7 shots is really strong. But what I really use it a lot for is especially on red and purple enemies, even hitting them with a pellet, so there it's not really that well aimed, but just hitting them with one pellet and them getting that poison on them will make them stagger. And what I'm in the habit of doing is to just, upon a wave spawning, basically, if I haven't intercepted them at the door, which sometimes you can't, or they come running towards you from somewhere, is I'll try to tap a red, swap over to my chem, land it on him or near him, and then, because he'll be staggered for quite a few seconds, so it's quite an easy shot. And that's what I really use the Scorpio for a lot, to just intercept enemies, make them stagger for a second. That second is more than enough for me to pull out my chem and then ignite them real quickly. And that's a habit that I've gotten into for a long time. So for that reason, I prefer it a lot over the capacitor. But the capacitor is a valid choice if you're going for damage. And the last thing I want to discuss is if I take actually an invulnerable enemy here, and I did not set that up, but we'll do that right here, is that you can use in sync to extend the time of fire. Because one of the things that I also feel that a lot of people don't know is that with status effects, a stronger damage status effects for the status effects that do deal damage, a stronger one will overwrite a weaker one. So if, for instance, they get set on fire by a fire grenade from maybe you or one of your allies, you can actually, so the duration is ticking down there, I'll put a fire cam underneath them, and that basically put a fresh fire on them. So usually as well, you can use the flame grenade to catch a wave at the door, because the flame grenade, of course, is a longer duration. It just stays on the floor, just lingers on that place, where a cam is, of course, a one ignition and then stuff catches on fire. So you can use a flame grenade at a door, especially doors where people rush out, catching them in the place. Then you put a fire cam on them to do an actual good fire, because the flame grenade is a very weak fire. But what you can do as well is by increasing the damage of your fire. So that's just to show how weak the flame is from the grenade, which was around 70k, where my actual fire is around 300-ish k, and that's even here without any group bonuses or anything like that. But what you can do as well is do the same with InSync. So here I'll set this enemy on fire. While he is burning, I'll hit him with InSync, triggering both ends of InSync. I have a stronger fire now, and when I reignite him, I'm igniting him with a fresh duration fire, overwriting the other one. And that's why the reason why I don't choose to go firewall. I can extend my duration by using that trick quite a lot. And especially with several elite waves where they spawn and one fire may not be enough time for them all to be killed, I can use that to extend the time that they are on fire, which is quite a useful trick. And I'll be likely using all of these tricks in gameplay, depending on which missions we land on. As I will briefly introduce the first build that we'll be running in a second, and we'll take it into some gameplay. So first off, we'll be taking this Eclipse into some gameplay, as this very much is what I would consider the baseline Eclipse, as I laid it out as well in the layout section. And one thing I want to make a note of saying here is that this build is very much, of course, optimized. I have a great 20 skills. I have a great 20 Scorpio as well that I've gone and grabbed. Everything is optimized to be full and recalibrated to be full. And that does influence how effective this build is, together with my knowledge of especially missions, where I'll likely know every spawn. And that's going to inherently skew the way that this footage looks. So if you don't get the same results on your first few runs, don't be disheartened. That is completely normal. The way I started with Eclipse, I also didn't I didn't know anything about anything. And eventually you will learn a little bit. Take especially the tips that I gave you in the tactics section to heart, as those very much can help you improve quite a lot faster. And also just briefly, as I didn't touch on it on the layout section, to bring up the build picture of this and just discuss it real quickly, is that, yeah, we are stacking as much status effect. So every piece has status effect. Every mod is skill haste because we don't have a better option there. Skill haste is really the only thing that applies well, as skill duration doesn't apply well to the hive or the fire cam, where with the fire cam especially, it is not the duration that the burn happens with skill duration, but how long the cloud stays on the ground in the game world, which is not of any concern to us. So skill haste on the mods, and then on the piece that you add in, the electric piece, there you can go either skill haste or skill damage. And then in my cases, I'll be going skill haste here. And actually in the next build, we'll be discussing with the next gameplay section, and I'll introduce it when we get there. I'll actually be taking skill damage because that makes more sense with the glass one. But yeah, that's just to introduce this a little bit, and also just say that I am someone that made a master class on Eclipse, so I am very confident in my abilities with it. And that confidence doesn't come from just me being born with it or anything. I have learned to become good at it. And I am of the mind that any person can match me likely. I am not an exceptional player in any way. And if you stick with it, you can catch up to me quite easily likely. So yeah, I will see you in the loading screens as we matchmake for a random heroic mission. And here I've accepted the invite to Jefferson Trade Center, and we're right at the start. There are quite a bit of directives active. It is invaded. Those are Black Tusk. I'll roll in and start helping my allies. What we have here is cool skills being active and 4 directives. And cool skills basically takes away one of my skills. In this case with the Eclipse, especially with me using fire cam, if I pull out my hive, I basically lose all of my charges on my fire cam. So instead of that, I'll be sticking to the name that is on this build showcase, which is that is a fire Eclipse, and using just the fire. My hive is basically I'll try to not use it at all. And actually, this mission is interesting because there's also a moment that Eclipse can make it quite easier. So I'll stick around and show that. As my ally, we likely have stuff behind us. We have 4 directives, Fog of War including. We're basically without the ammo directive. That's the only thing we're missing. And yeah, they are fighting stuff on their lonesome back here, and I will be their friend. And try to help them. Yeah, there, the just 3 taps of the Scorpio took away the enemy. That mini tank will deconstruct on his own.
Get there as fast as you can.
I will. So what I always as well do with Eclipse is very much reliant on its teammates. So what I very much want is to have strong teammates with me, and that means that once I load in, I will look at their armor bars and the skills that they're running. I see way too much armor, basically, on my allies. I'll inspect them briefly and see that it's not great stuff, not horrible stuff, pretty average stuff, and that's okay for this mission. I'll help carry it. Running in, trying to, and my basically we have a heavy here. I will hit him with that crossbow bolt. That crossbow bolt will break the armor part that it hits, and that will hopefully save my allies, which are quite blind, as you may see there. One of them sees it and turns around, but by hitting this guy with that crossbow, I broke his chest, letting me go through him a lot easier. And that's really why I do like the crossbow. The crossbow, whenever on dogs, on heavies, you can use it to pop off their chest or whatever armor piece that you hit, and then go on further from there. I'll try to set something on fire here, and yeah. So my doctrine for the Eclipse, basically the thing that I require it to do, if I'm it or someone else is it, is try to at least, with every wave that spawns, set something on fire. That is my goal here. That is what I'm trying to hit as my goal. And that is, of course, not something that I will always achieve, but it is the thing that I strive for. And doing so, try to maximize my output. Because yes, if you're not basically setting one thing of every wave on fire, you are... what is it doing then, basically, is the question. Which a lot of... in matchmaking eclipses, I find... it's sometimes quite frustrating of nothing's really ever on fire. And I would very much like that... by giving these videos out to help improve people's effectiveness with them, to show them some of the tricks, show it how I play it. I consider myself somewhat of an Eclipse main, almost. I have ran Eclipse quite a lot. In Invaded, we have a chest on the left side here, so we do go the wrong way, so get that. As we have also already skipped one chest in a corridor back there, but I was in a fight for our lives, so... And we'll head in and fight this first boss. And yeah, without my hive, I'm a lot more limited. Here, I would definitely use my hive here, toss it into the middle, use it as an area denial, basically. I'm gonna help her along to die, and then that will make it so that the fire on her will spread. Here, we mostly need to kill the boss. Once the boss is dead and everything else is dead, these two mini tanks will deconstruct, and they are... I'll likely get hit by the explosion here, but it's fine because them exploding also indicates it's out of combat. But I shouldn't have, actually, because I got an armor break from it, and I'm luckily not bugged, as quite often with the armor break, with the fragile armor directive, those armor breaks will not go away when you heal yourself, as they should. So you'll start compiling a nice collection of them. As I move along with my allies, one thing I'll do here, and I want to be at the head of this team to maybe drag them with me, is go around here and get this chest, because, yeah, loot is loot. And it feels good to get loot, so let's get loot. And with especially more open spaces like this, what I would do here as an option is to, for instance, grab Jammer Pulse. As my hive, they spawn out of several doorways, so my hive is not as effective all around. As I go for that sniper in the back, as I saw the sniper glint. On the hyena version, I would put it by this door there, where there's going to be several spawns from it. But especially in this one, for instance, I would toss it halfway down and try to catch this next wave that will come off the left side. As I'll help this enemy along, I'll grab a crossbow, but that dog is basically dead anyway. I'll go on the left side here, and one thing that you want to, especially if you want to main Eclipse, basically, is try to find all of the special ammo locations, and they are quite handy to know, and I know most of them by this point. As, yeah, especially shock rounds, that shock as well from the shock rounds, so yeah, that wave especially, I would try to get my hive underneath them. Yeah, shock will help quite a bit. Oh, we have an ongoing directive who overrode my shock rounds, which is one of the annoying things. I wish you could basically, mechanically, of course, that would require a lot of work, but I wish I could opt out of basically his bleed rounds. As we get rogues. So normally here I would swap to a PFE, which is my preferred way to deal with them. But seeing as we're doing an Eclipse showcase, and this section might make it in, I will swap to foam, because fire does not work well against rogues. They basically ignore it. They'll be on fire, they'll burn for a bit, but they won't stop shooting, they won't really care that they are. But foam is a lot more useful for that, and that's also the reason that it gets used in Legendary. You don't use fire, and that's because, yeah, they are very much... I wish they would deal with the skill in front of them. I don't have the damage to kill this, really.
Detected.
I'm going to try to catch them.
Drone. Detected.
Or them. Or someone, at the very least.
Detected.
Oh yeah, my aim was pretty bad there. But yeah, once they're foamed on the ground, they'll not fire for quite a while. I'll try to get the full debuff on them from the Scorpio. I'll go back, heal myself up, even though this ally is trying to help with that as well. They are out of the foam. I'll put a fresh one on them. And yeah, to continue that thought, on Legendary especially, they have quite a high resistance to... I want them off the minigun. But the disorient is there. That foam will take them off the minigun at the very least. As so people are applying sledgehammers to them as well, but they're a little bit blind in the same way as they were with the heavy behind them in the first room of that they're flanked, very much so. I will help them that one because he's trying to heal. The one annoying thing here is that I'll be on cooldown, and especially for the next room, I don't want to be on cooldown really. For swapping back to... I'll get him back off. That one on the left is an obvious decoy, even though my allies are shooting at it. But yeah, here especially, once you start getting a few of them down, it starts snowballing. We go from being 5 versus 4 on their end to being you know, multiples, and then just being more easy to kill. Especially what you want to do, if you have some dedication or are a player that pays attention, is to very much focus down one. So if you see your allies firing on some, start firing on the same ones. If you start to get the numbers down, it goes quite fast. Here, I don't want to use my foam. I'll just use my shock from my Scorpio. helping to take them down, because if I can swap back to fire, that would be very nice,
Agent
but
eliminated.
that's not going to happen. What I could do here is kill myself and respawn and be at full charges, but I'm hesitant to do that because that might... what I'll do instead is grab fire sticky, and I'll just do it with a fire stick instead. While my foam is, or my foam will then never recharge actually because cool skills is active, so that kind of sucks. But then I'll be a fire sticky main at this point. I'm hoping this guy doesn't rush in solo, and he does. Kind of. He's already triggered that wave up ahead to spawn in. I'll do it with my grenades and just wait out my foam. So here we have some EMP jammers. The EMP jammers can burn. So what I'll do is put a fire grenade there, put a fire grenade over there. Although getting these with fire chems is a lot easier than... Although that ally is kind of going for it, but is also going way past it for no reason. And as red builds, you can shoot them actually through here in the back there. You can just shoot them. And once those are down, this room becomes a lot easier. Although that ally should have actually killed the one that he ran past. He did not, which is kind of annoying. In a second, I can swap back to my fire camps. And, well, this is a little bit annoying. I'll deal with it here. But yeah, I went too close. Usually because I get it really quickly before we... But yeah, from here, I could... Yeah, he got it there, but I could just shoot it from here, set it on fire, get it. Same for that one in the back there. That you can also just shoot from here, as this player with a shotgun is trying to do, which... Yeah, shotguns at those ranges aren't effective. My fire is a little bit more effective. And yeah, one of the things as well with Eclipse is, yeah, the fire, of course, is kind of like artillery. It's not less effective at range, as long as you get it onto target, and quite often you can. Once you get decently good at the chem, especially looking at it, if it's red and getting those lines in it, you can quite easily fire into far targets, really far targets, and quite easily get them down. Now that I have my fire back, so I had to wait out the cam launcher basically, because I had it set to foam, of course. And now that it's back to be having fire, I think they spawned on the right side. I heard a voice line, but didn't see it. I'll crossbow this one. He is actually already armor broken because he took some armor. His health went down a little bit. So I'll grab this chest along the way because I want all the loots. And we'll go up here and grab more. I think something is still alive in here because we still have secure. Oh no, actually. Oh yeah, we do. There's one guy in here, and as I also quite recently found out, they can shoot through these windows. And yeah, once the red is on fire, he's dead. So I'm ignoring him. He will not start firing. Reds do not fire at all till they fully run out of being on fire. And here especially is one of the places that it's already an easy fight, and it's even easier with an Eclipse. Because they'll be coming down from choppers, and that makes it quite easy for all of them to be on fire. As I toss a fire grenade on this one, to show that one, so you can toss a fire grenade on top of it, and that will set every wave coming out of it on fire. But of course, it's a weak grenade fire, but it'll get going. The other option that you have, and I'll try to show it here, is with choppers. They have that refueling rod that is on the right side there. On it, you can kind of line the camp there, and then once the red line goes red, although my ally shot it there, but he did it at the time that stuff was coming out of it anyway. You ignite it, and then you can get the fire going. You can also, on the other side, on the wheel, kind of land it in the mid-air of it. And yeah, here I'll try to do it again as well, from this side of the chopper. So yeah, as you can see, that area is very consistent, basically. Although, as I say that, two of them go wrong. I give up. I'll just land. I'll just catch them on the floor. Yeah, sometimes it does go like that, because of course I'm trying to try hard and show that kind of stuff, and then of course it doesn't do it, and then normally it always does. So here we have a boss coming down, and the boss is going to come with off of that chopper, and there's a wave on this one. So I'll put my flame grenade on this, on that one, and I'll try to focus down or help keep the boss basically detained. And I'll do that by scorpioing him, disorient, shock, the full debuff, and yeah, he melts away. Although the other parts of it kind of got to get out, but I'll try to catch them. But I'll go get my loot. This fight is basically over. There's only one guy left, although he is suppressed, and well, he's done.
We'll have to check the logs to see if the access.
And not the cleanest run, but it did show us how to deal with rogues as well. Although I wouldn't stay Eclipse usually. It is an option that you can go for with a strong team to grab that foam them to the ground. But I would much rather be a PFE and just go kill them. Damage-wise, let's see how well we did. As we didn't, without the hive, I'm less likely to be on top on damage. As yeah, I'm giving up one of my tools where red builds here aren't without the ammo directive. And yeah, I very much showed what a crossbow a little bit can do, what the Scorpio can do a little bit, how you can change skills, how you can just even get through missions, as of course cool skills is a directive on this season, how to get through that with just one skill, which is quite common. And yeah, I will join you in a second in an introduction to the glass build. And here we are with the glass variant of a Fire Eclipse. And glass is, of course, a very strong talent, and especially here, it's, as glass does always, is it amplifies all damage. We're using the normal variant here, which is going to increase it by 25%, but all damages you deal is amplified by 25%, is affecting all of our output. So the initial ignition of the fire cam, the fire itself, the bleeds, our firing our weapon, everything is 25% stronger, and that makes it quite strong. But of course, we are giving up the chest talent of Eclipse, which increased our radius and duration whenever it's spread. So it is a trade-off. You're dealing more damage, but it's spreading less far. So it plays quite a little bit differently, because also all damages we take is amplified by 50% on this normal variant. And yeah, that makes it so that I can't be running around as much as I enjoy doing with the normal Fire Eclipse, just running around like a headless chicken. Here I have to be more cognizant to put myself in cover and try to as well catch every wave. So I'll be using the fire grenade a lot more here, just to make sure that I always catch every wave. For the rest of it, I want to also briefly discuss Perpetuation. It is a really good talent, as it also increases the damage of the status effect, which very few other talents will do. But a lot of people recommend this Everlasting Gaze really hard onto people. And this piece is very much, if you have it, sure, use it. But if you don't have it, don't go way out of your way to get one, as it is a very minor increase going from 20 seconds cooldown to 16 seconds, which is the only thing that perfect perpetuation has over normal perpetuation. So it is one of those pieces that you shouldn't go out of your way for. If you have it, as I have here as well, it's fine to put it in. But even here, what I will do is actually grab an in-sync shotgun, because I like having that in-sync shotgun. And I'm very much used to just running all my Eclipses with in-sync shotgun and then the Scorpio. And having that always be the same across all of them makes it just easier on my mind. So I usually grab an in-sync shotgun just for that increased damage, letting me refire. So yeah, in a second we'll join each other in the loading screen. And here we are loading into American History Museum. And I'm taking the glass, of course, into here. And they're very much, oh, they're at the start. Although I loaded in, and I'm going to help my allies along. I don't have any crossbow bolts yet, so I can't help with breaking these chests. But what I'll do is put the full Scorpio debuff on that guy, move over to that guy, and help him take a little bit more damage. Because yeah, the crossbow would have taken their chest off in one shot, quite easily. And this very much is a mission that I would consider pulling off a disrupt, a jamming pulse for, and helping, using that to get a lot of these smaller things, the dogs and stuff, down, the mini tanks, and can be quite useful for that. As I'll just run around, try to set something on fire. I was short there, and I'll just over aim it and get it on target. As yeah, once he's dead, that mini tank will deconstruct as long as everything else is dead, which something is up here. Oh, that's another mini tank. Oh, there's a heavy back there. Don't have any crossbow bolts yet, but what I can help with is, while this fire isn't going to, or me putting some Scorpio rounds around him, isn't actually going to deal a ton of damage, what it will do is put a status effect on him, or in the case of this fire, and what that will do is, well, first there, actually, I saved my ally because he swapped aggro because I did a ton of damage to him. But my allies, of course, also deal 10% more damage to enemies because I am survivalist, as long as they are status effective. And that's really the main reason to go survivalist, together with the fire grenade, which is really strong, and the crossbow, which is also really strong. And that's always really my choice for group eclipses, which I find actually a in-group is really what I use eclipses as. Our ally that is very low level rushed in and started engaging the next wave. I'll go catch up with him. So we don't have cool skills as with the last run. So my hive is available to me now, and I'll use it here. Try to effectively get some damage out. As yeah, the hive, what it is to me is my burst damage. It is very much the tool that I use to weaken a wave, damage them heavily, and kill some things as well. I'll try to put it in front of doors in anticipation, basically, trying to get waves to have to run through it. I always take that escalator or down because there's a chest here in invaded. It's here on normal. It's the train car there, and we'll grab that. I haven't inspected my allies yet. I'll do that here, even though they engaged. So we have a striker. We have a very low level player trying their best, and we have another striker. So damage wise, they won't be the best, but they'll do okay, hopefully.
Agent down.
He has a hive, and he'll get up on his own, as I'll try to set something on fire. And that's much easier with the Scorpio, as there, for instance, they got disoriented, although they got killed real quickly, of course, as well. But I can use that disorient even on elites to get a fire camp underneath them and get the fire going. I'm gonna cut left here, trying to catch this wave before they get out, but they kind of got out. But this is basically what I use the hive for. It is very much an area denial. Nothing is gonna go through that and try to get to me because they will choose not to. I have some crossbow bolt and we have a dog, and we shall marry the two, and they shall live for usually around 20 seconds longer, and then that will do them part. And actually, the crossbow itself explodes, so the crossbow dies first, or the bolt of the crossbow dies first. So that is what does them part. There's going to be a wave inside of this building in a second, and I may catch them. Or they have already spawned, actually. I didn't keep well track, because yeah, as always, talking and playing is very much a thing that takes quite a bit of your our mental abilities. My teammates are quite weak. That much is clear to me now. Because yeah, not much is dying. I'll use the crossbow here, one on the heavy, one on the dog. I could use a jammer pulse here to just take these dogs down, but don't want to take the time to swap. I'll wait for my heal to apply a little bit and then move in. The dogs will get disrupted in a second. I'm gonna go after his chest as well, and then just okay, I didn't get the chest on this other guy, but I did get the one on the back, and I ran out of crossbow bolts afterwards. I'll put some disorients and some shocks out there.
System rack.
helping my allies along. Full debuffs on them now as well. The fire is about to go off. I'll put a fresh one on them. Although actually the disrupt was still on them, so they would have gotten the damage debuff from there as well. And especially, for instance, in this upcoming room, this is really where my hive will somewhat shine, as we have 2 doors where enemies will spawn from. One of them gets ignored way too often, and I'm going to use my hive to make sure that it isn't ignored. But as a glass, as I said, I want to make sure that a lot of things are often on fire, and to do that, I will actually use a flame grenade there and a flame grenade there, catching everything that spawns. Then I will set this wave on fire, and this is the door where, yeah, it gets ignored way too often. So my hive, even though if I put it in front by that door, it would do a ton of damage and it would help with me being on top of damage. I might try to use it in the back here and make sure that we survive. This dog gets a crossbow bolt. As yeah, it weakened this wave quite strongly, and the wave before it, because my allies weren't really set up for it anyway, to deal with them. And yeah, I'll send whatever has recharged of it back there as well. Because yeah, as you can see, most of my allies have pushed towards the door that everybody knows, but then skipping the door that everybody forgets. This heavy should not have been here. He ran all the way because he didn't spawn from the door that I was guarding. So he made it all the way up from the door that the others were guarding, and you would hope that they would have dealt enough damage to him to aggro him, but they didn't. But we got there through there pretty easily. And yeah, a lot of teams forget about that door, get surrounded, and die. And especially as a glass, I very much want to make sure that I catch everybody in at least a little bit. As my allies are going actually for the chest back there, which I'll go for as well, as this chest as well gets, although they didn't go for it, because it's over here. And you might as well get all the loot. Here with these 2 ropes, what you can do is if you line it up, you jump between them. And that's a lot faster. And you look cooler, so it's worth it. So we have gotten the key, so we could open that crate, get this loot. I'll wait for my allies. I usually want to run in with 3 people. So if one person runs in solo, that's fine. I'll wait for us to be one more person, basically. Although they are taking their sweet time, which I don't know why they are. But yeah, it's too easy to get a bad wipe for no reason. There's no reason to solo rushing. So I'll wait for my allies, be a blob. And if that means that I'm a dick to a person that is rushing, I am very comfortable with that. So here I'll just Scorpio. I don't want to use a crossbow because I don't have that many, and later on it might be useful. I'll just stay out of this guy's way because he'll blow up and bleed everything around him. I can just avoid. I do want that med pack, which I do get. And my allies engaging from just opening the door, seeing someone and engaging tells me that they aren't that tactically aware. The thing you should do is go get, when you're not engaged, when you're not in combat, just go get in a position that is valuable to you, where you can be effective, and then engage. That is a tactic that you should always use as a red pill. I also went upstairs on the left, as you saw me there go. There's a key chest, and I went for that and got it real quick.
Laptop detected.
As yeah, this ally is pushing in, I'm gonna set that wave on fire because yeah, although the player that instantly engaged from way too far wasn't with the group, so the other one did go into cover real quick, which yeah, he knows what he's doing. Here we have a dog, although my allies will likely break him even before my crossbow breaks him, but it is my best option against the dog anyway. I'll go get these shock rounds over here, just to have it for the boss fight. I'll stay in the back here because in a second the objective will be in the back here. I'll try to get that guy on fire, but I hit the mini tank instead of it. Because yeah, the objective is here. I'll save us some time by hanging back here.
Review the
And,
data you just downloaded and see what we can make of it. Continue your
and we're gonna head into the boss fight.
I'm getting a flurry of
And this one is especially a lot more spread out. But again, I will use my hive to basically camp 2 of the spawn points. And that's really what that hive is for. And especially here with the glass, also applying to it, the hive. It is increasing that initial hit with its explosive damage and its bleed, of course, as well. So the glass is actually very strong, very effective. But yeah, it comes at that cost. You have not only do you take more damage, but your spread is less. That's really the thing that hurts most, because dealing with the extra damage isn't too hard. If you're playing it right, most of the things will be on fire most of the time. Although I am, of course, as I say it, failing at that, at my cause of or my doctrinal thing of every wave has something on fire. Although she was nice enough and ran into my fire. I didn't put my hive down where I wanted it, which is there. And yeah, that will push all these guys out. So while they're spawning, instead of instantly coming out and trying to fight us, what they will do is run out and then be hit by my hive. And be very much, they will very much feel the need to run out of it, which is really what the hive is very much used for. It is actually a really strong CC tool in that way. When I catch her, yeah, my hive is then hitting that wave as well as it's spawning. Now we'll have the chopper in a second, and then another wave coming through this gate in front of us there. But I'll put a few charges on my hive as we'll waiting here anyway. I could put a flame grenade on it, but I'll put it underneath it just to see everything here. I'll put my hive here in the anticipation, and get a fire cam going there. And once this wave has spawned in, especially seeing as there are no dogs, everything will die. And we are mission complete.
area secure. Good work.
And yeah, there you saw what the glass variant did. Although it is difficult to on footage see that it is doing more damage, it very much feels a lot stronger. Although, of course, it's not spreading as often. So there is that trade-off, and that makes both of them a valid choice. And that's why I have both of them. What I would recommend, if you only make this one or only make the other one thing you can do, and that is what this character has as an option as well, as I'll show here, is they have actually an Eclipse chest. And then I have a old golden glove that I can put on them, and now they've become the other variant. So it's very easy to even save this as a separate loadout, or in the case of mine, of course, I've run out of loadout slots, but I have the parts, just those 2 parts, swap them around, and then now it's back to being a non-glass Eclipse. So yeah, let's move on to the conclusion, where I'll give my final thoughts. And to conclude this video, Eclipse to me is the quintessential group support, and I very much enjoy running it myself in group, in heroic, especially with Fire Eclipse, and even as Foam Eclipse, which I of course did not show here today, in legendaries. They are quite strong. They are very much my preferred way of going with a 4-man team, of having 3 decently strong reds or whatever builds they want to run that are decently strong, together with 1 Eclipse, making everything so much easier by setting everything on fire, CCing a ton of stuff, and making it quite easy to go through heroics. And I very much have always enjoyed running them, and I hope that more people will run them, as they are quite popular, but not as popular as they should be. I feel basically every group should have one. And in these layouts that I showed today, in the glass variant and in the what I consider the baseline variant, the normal variant, those are what I would very much put as the 2 recommended ones. But also on my build collection, you will find that there are several other ways that I have, with either gunner with the baseline variant, or going with a perfect opportunistic backpack as I have with one of them. And they are all very much valid choices, but these 2 very much would be what I would recommend you start with. And then, as you saw, as I did with the glass variant, as this was, I just swap some pieces around, and you can swap over to it becoming a different variant, which is also what I do to gain foam variants. I just have the parts in my stash, and I move some parts around to make it a foam variant. And also, over the coming days, I will add a folder in the in the build collection, which I've been doing over the last few days, of already strikers with several just in a ranked order, what I consider the better layouts for it. And I'll be doing the same for Eclipse. And in there also, I'll be adding a foam one because I never had a foam one in one of my loadouts, but I do have a foam one that I basically put together by grabbing a few parts from my stash. And that's also why all my characters basically use a glove as the piece that they swap out. And also then just to touch on the golem piece that is equipped here. So golem used to, of course, always be the choice back in the day for it, the optimal choice as well with its status effect. And that's been superseded completely now by electric. And that's made it a lot easier to make many of the variants because it is so much easier to farm for, especially, for instance, that glass chest that I ran. And it has been completely superseded. But if you still have those old pieces, there's nothing wrong with them. It's basically the exact same. And even if you do get a really good skill haste status effect one and you can record it, sure, run it for a prestige. As I'll be keeping a few of those pieces as well, just for nostalgia's sake. So yeah, that very much concludes the Eclipse build, the Fire Eclipse build showcase here. For my next video, I'll be doing an infographic basically as I did for the targeted loot drops for exotics, but for named items and basically where they drop, so people can more easily just have at a glance see where everything drops, if it's in the DZ or if it's in the LZ or if it's in both. As I feel that is a useful tool to add to the community. And after that, I will be doing an ongoing directive build showcase, and that will round out all three of the buffing builds that I consider to be good buffing builds. So I hope you either join me on Twitch or for those coming videos, and have a good night.